Helen Kasper is the Chief Operating Officer of Dillingham Insurance, which is a 97-year-old firm rooted in Enid, Oklahoma. With over 25 years of industry expertise, Helen brings a wealth of experience and strategic vision to her role. Before joining Dillingham in 2023, Helen held prominent leadership roles at places like The Hartford, including head of National Client Group, division executive in Chicago, and even the head of sales excellence. Her extensive background reflects her dedication to driving growth and delivering exceptional results for the insurance industry. So, Helen, while you are been at Dillingham for a few years now, you and I are relatively newer to each other. So I'm very excited that we get to sit down and have this conversation.
Likewise, Brooke. It's great to be here.
There's quite a few things that stood out in your benchmarking reports in your max performer criteria. So got some questions that we tried to prep ahead of time. And the first one is about organic growth. Your firm's growth in commercial lines is really top quartile in the nation. What are top two decisions that you've made internally, maybe initiatives or things you've invested in that you think helped unlock such high organic growth momentum?
Yeah, good question. The first thing we did was we got really intentional in clearly defining our ideal client and made it very clear that the highest commission splits would be awarded to producers for attracting ideal clients. And then for those clients that are less than 10K in revenue, we've established a dedicated select business unit, but really being intentional there on what it means and how we're rewarding our producers really did have a big impact. So that would be the first thing that I would hit on. The second thing is continuing to enhance our sales culture. And a big part of that was establishing, we heard it from John this morning, establishing minimum new revenue targets for the producers. Again, in order to realize the highest compensation splits, they need to hit those new revenue targets. But beyond that, there is also support that goes with the producers in the way of a really disciplined Monday morning sales meeting where the head of sales is reviewing the opportunities in the pipeline as they're going through the various stages. We do define in the pipeline if it's an ideal client or not. And then when you think of on a monthly basis, our benefits organization and P&C come together every month with the sole purpose of sharing referrals, sharing network ideas, and really driving a total account sale to the client. So
that cross-selling is something that I think we consider a luxury when in reality it should be part of the blocking and tackling of rounding out accounts and growing your business. So let me clarify. You have a carrot in place. So the more new business your producers write, they can actually earn a higher percentage of commission?
The highest splits are rewarded for producers hitting a minimum new revenue target. If they don't hit that minimum new revenue target, they have a haircut. So there's a real incentive there. But then, like I said, the support as we're running those Monday morning sales meetings, understanding how it's moving forward and what support they need to be able to get it over the finish line.
Yeah. Well, MarshBerry, we love a good carrot and a good stick. So I'm glad that Dillingham, that's a way to hold your producers accountable and really cement that sales culture. That makes sense. Okay, let's move on to profit.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
Your favorite. Actually, just a week or so ago, I was on the line with you and other executives to talk about technology and artificial intelligence. And you really clearly have a dedicated interest in reinvesting back in your organization. Maybe AI and technology is just one example of how you reinvest. But your profitability metrics, from reward ratio to also your contingent income stability, suggest that you're really efficient. You're still highly profitable even though you're reinvesting in your business. So how do you maintain that high profitability while continuing to invest in things like technology and people?
That one has been great to watch, and it's driven by a couple things. The first thing we did is we completely shifted our distribution strategy. So today we do business with a very limited number of strategic carrier and broker partners. And there are so many benefits to that. Obviously, the contingency income is one benefit. We more than doubled that over the span of 2 years. But the real benefit there is When we bring opportunities to those markets, they know they're not competing against multiple players in our shop. So we're getting their time, their attention. It is a different level of engagement. Then think of the benefit with our operations team. They have a limited number of relationships that they're now building much deeper connections with. They know the appetite, they know who the underwriters and the underwriting leaders are. So it is an efficiency and profit gain. It's been awesome to watch that piece. I think the other thing that's important is our average revenue per client and our total commission and fees per service person are slightly higher than our peers. So that higher average revenue allows us to maintain a lower operating cost. And then, you look at the cockpit, and John hit on that this morning, really clear data so that we're able to see at any one point in time, what's the capacity of our account managers, revenue size, number of clients. We look at that on a seasonal basis. So I can look 90, 120 days out to know which of the account managers has capacity, how we need to move that around so that we're really efficient. And I think the last thing that speaks to our culture on an efficiency side is we empower our team to make decisions and to problem solve. And we know they're going to make mistakes, but they know we have their back. And when you have a culture like that where people aren't afraid to take risk and to step out there, you eliminate bottlenecks, you don't have a hierarchy, you don't have bureaucracy, and it's liberating. And it's obviously really efficient too.
It's similar to a MarshBerry cultural characteristic. John, I hope you're not in the room because I'm going to slaughter the wording, but it's something along the lines of when you fail or make a mistake, you're learning.
Right.
So have you learned lately? And that's hard for someone like me who's a perfectionist that wants to do everything right all the time. It's like, maybe I do need to get my hands dirty every now and then because that breeds innovation, that breeds the efficiencies perhaps that you're referencing.
Totally. Agreed.
Very good. All right. Next question is also along efficiencies. In fact, looking at your productivity per employee at the company overall, it's best in class. Actually, it's peak performance. I hope this is right, but I looked in PHP last night. Your revenue per service person alone is $500,000.
Right.
$500,000 per service person. So what internal practices, whether it's staffing, niche development, tech, training, that you're crediting to achieving these peak performance levels of revenue per service person?
It really does start with the team and the culture. We have an incredible team, experienced, and at the core of that team are core values that start first with, we're serving our client, we're serving our teammate, we commit to greatness, we're always growing. And so we support the team in a number of ways with skill progression and talent development. We launched Dillingham University so people can grow their career at Dillingham. That is a really big part and a driver in the productivity. On internal practices, again, thinking back to what John shared this morning, very defined operating routines and workflows. And those workflows we continue to fine tune, but we have them very distinct for non-select business units. It is a very defined process in the select business unit where you're leveraging technology in a different way. And we just launched a newly designed, dedicated new business marketing organization, so clear workflows and operating routines for that as well. So I think what you hear me say is it's the team, it's the culture, it is this commitment to continuous improvement, and then it's the clear workflows and operating routines that all drive the productivity.
The tiering that you talk of is interesting because I think I caught, you said that your minimum account threshold is 10,000. Okay, that's pretty high. I'm sure it hasn't always been that way.
Correct. We continue to move that up, just as we continue now to fine tune, all right, for the business that's below 10K, our select business unit, we've got to make sure that we're also tiering that, right? So you're not over-servicing some clients, under-servicing others. And so we're now tiering those so that some can be handled in a micro way through technology, but others are really low-end middle market. So constantly evolving, constantly fine-tuning.
I think that's brilliant because it's hard for us to full service people from long-time account relationships, but realizing how inefficient that can be based off of the type of touch that that client needs really can bog down that revenue per service person. So I'm glad you figured it out.
Right.
That's great. You've managed to create a culture that retains your experienced producers, but you're also investing in the next generation of talent. In fact, I was looking at your weighted average producer age for your new folks, and it's 47. So it's below what I just showed in our recent presentation. So what is your key to having that generational, multi-generational staff and keeping turnover low at the same time?
Yeah, it is a really special organization. 4 generations, family-owned. We're coming up on 100 years, and it's a culture where we value both experience, but new perspectives. And it's also a culture where we celebrate as a team. I'm actually hard-pressed when I look back on this year to identify accounts that were won by an individual producer. We win as a team. And so you think of that culture of respecting and valuing both experience as well as new perspectives. You see that playing out in such a big way in our formal mentoring program. It is such a high to watch Generation 3 mentor Generation 4. And our senior producers bring those rookie producers and junior producers under their wing to navigate through decision makers, problem solve, and really enjoy the win. It is a big, big part of our culture, and something that we take a lot of pride in, absolutely.
Something that is difficult to implement, quite frankly. I think some of you might look at your senior producers and think, oh, Jerry would never spend time away from his own new business production to help some kid that doesn't know what they're doing. But that's not the right mentality for the business. Maybe it is for Jerry's book. So the two-pronged benefit I love of this that you mentioned at Dillingham is that formal mentorship program probably helps your newbie producers ramp up faster, but I imagine also serve as somewhat of a book perpetuation opportunity for those producers looking for an exit at some time as well. Have you experienced that?
And I think it goes back to the culture of paying it forward. And you absolutely see that. It's interesting. I think of some of those senior producers over the past year that have really stepped in, and they've actually come back and said, I haven't felt this energized in a while. So it's giving them this renewed sense of purpose and impact beyond perhaps what they may have had when they first started their career.
Well, how cool is it to leave a legacy behind? All of the knowledge that you've amassed over the years to pass that on to somebody else, like that is gotta feel like leaving a legacy.
Great.
That's great. Thank you, Helen, for being here. Round of applause for Helen and Dillingham.
Thank you.